just wondering about your reaction to a big trade in the NBA, James Harden going to the Nets. What do you make of that sort of shift in the NBA?
I don't really have too much of a reaction. Obviously trades and things happen every year. And, for me, my main focus on what we do here and how we continue to get better. And that was the case today. The trades happened today, and I couldn't allow myself to kind of indulge in that, knowing that we had a team that we had to play tonight. So my main focus today was on the Thunder.
For much more, let's bring in Stephen A. Smith. You're the first person I thought of when I heard about this trade. Your reaction to this blockbuster move?
Well, first of all, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's finals or bust. You assemble Lethal Weapon 3, which is what we could easily call them right now. There's simply no excuse not to come out of the East and advance to the NBA Finals. There really is not an excuse. James Harden's getting paid $40 million this year. Kevin Durant's getting paid $39 million. Kyrie Irving is somewhere we don't know at an undisclosed location doing whatever it is that he does, but still getting $33.4 million this season. In the end, what it comes down to is that all of these brothers are big-time basketball players. This is Kevin Durant's franchise. James Harden would not be there unless Kevin Durant wanted him to be there. It's definitely a security blanket in case things continue to fall in the wrong direction as it pertains to Kyrie Irving. It's going to come down with James Harden and Kevin Durant. And let me be very, very clear. We can sit up there and we can talk about James Harden all we want to. The man has averaged over 30 the last 3 years, at least 29 the last 4 years, at least 28 the last 5 years. He is one of the most prolific scorers this game of basketball has ever seen. And more importantly than that, he loves to play the game of basketball. He doesn't engage in load management. He believes in showing up. You can worry about a few things all you want to about James Harden, but the one thing you do not have to worry about is him showing up to play the game of basketball because he wants to play. He wanted to play with Kevin Durant, at least until this morning after all of this Kyrie news percolated. Then Philadelphia was obviously an option with Daryl Morey, his former president of basketball operations in Philly, along with Doc Rivers, the head coach there now. But everybody that knows anything about the NBA right now knew that Tillman Fertitta, the owner for the Houston Rockets, would never allow James Harden to end up in Philadelphia with Daryl Morey. They end up going to the finals. His former star, his former president of basketball operations. Folks in the NBA community firmly believe Philadelphia was never going to be an option no matter what James Harden wanted. But obviously, he wants and loves the idea of playing with Kevin Durant.
So the Rockets get a boatload of picks here. You mentioned the Nets, and you think it's championship or bust. What advice would you give Steve Nash? First-time head coach Steve Nash now guiding this team with these stars.
Embrace James Harden and Kevin Durant and let Kyrie Irving figure it out. You can't trust Kyrie Irving right now. It's just that simple. We're not questioning his greatness as a basketball player, his box office appeal, where his heart is at because it's in the right place. But clearly at this particular moment in time, basketball is not the priority it needs to be. And if you're Steve Nash coaching on any level for the first time in your career, you do not need to be concerned about what he's going to do, when he's going to do it, how he's going to do it, etc. You know you can trust Kevin Durant to show up and play ball if he's healthy. You know you can trust James Harden to show up and play basketball for this franchise if he's healthy. You focus on that and the other parts that you have, and if Kyrie Irving wants to come back, when he wants to come back, put the onus on him to fit in. That's what you do if you're Steve Nash at this particular moment in time, because Kyrie Irving has already shown you you're not the priority you need to be. So why make him one?
What were your first thoughts when you heard this went down?
So many. First, the Nets have to make the finals. They have to make the finals. Let's just assume for a second that Kyrie is on the team and will play for the Nets at some point this season. This is the only big three in the NBA. I don't mean they're two great players and here's their third best player. I mean big three. And whenever we've seen a big three, they at least make the finals. Celtics put together Pierce and Garnett and Ray Allen. They won. Even when Miami failed, they failed in the finals when they had LeBron and Wade and Bosh. There's no other big three. Two MVPs who are still at MVP level, and a third guy in Kyrie Irving who's more than just an all-star. He has MVP talent and achieves that all-star plus production. You have those three guys, you're supposed to get to the finals at least. And they had to make the deal. You know, earlier I said, no, you don't trade for James Harden, don't mess this up. But then Dinwiddie was lost for the season. So, in fact, kind of counterintuitively, as you lost some depth, as the Nets lost depth and another ball handler in the backcourt, They actually had to lose more depth in order to get high-end talent to compensate. But they did lose depth. They lost Allen. They lost LeVert. And Houston got a haul. 4 firsts and 4 swaps. That's an amazing haul considering the leverage that Brooklyn had because Harden was out of there. And this is what I mean when I say superstars, Stephen A. and the league have all the leverage. What do I mean by that? Well, they can sign where they want when their deal is up, LeBron, KD, whomever, right? And they go from team to team. But because of that, guys like AD, say whatever you want about how long it took. AD wanted to go to the Lakers. Where did he wind up? The Lakers. Say whatever you want to say about Harden and the ups and downs. He said he wanted to go to Brooklyn. Where did he wind up? Brooklyn. Let this be a lesson to the owners in case they didn't already understand. If you have a superstar, an MVP caliber player, he's going to wind up where he says he wants to go anyway. Make the best deal you can. Now, finally, Stephen A., they have their work cut out for them. Not only is this not a good defensive team right now, but they're not adding a guy who's like a stalwart defender, in the first place, in James Harden, though his defense till this year, we'll throw this out, has improved through the years. And also, there's only one ball. And while KD is a super great player, with or without the ball, doesn't matter, James Harden and Kyrie Irving both really need and want and like that ball. So they have their work cut out for them. But this team is finals or bust this year.
Well, definitely finals or bust. We agree there. But what I would tell you is, as it pertains to what was on my mind when the deal was first announced, never has James Harden been under more pressure than he is this year. The same could be said for Kyrie Irving, whose career I believe is on the line. You have people looking at him and wondering whether he's worth the trouble. We know what an ultra-talented person he is. He's a superstar talent. We get all of that. But guess what? Right now, he can't play better than me. You know why, Max? Because both of us are not on the court. He's somewhere else other than the Barclays Center, on the road with his team. I'm on television. He ain't doing anything on the court that I ain't doing, because neither one of us are there. Think about that and put that in its proper perspective. It does not matter how great you are if you don't put your greatness on display and you don't appreciate your greatness to the point where you don't showcase it in the fashion that he is supposed to. In the case of James Harden, this is the deal. You in Houston, you wanted Dwight Howard, then you didn't. You wanted CP3, then you didn't. You wanted Russell Westbrook, then you didn't mind y'all parting ways even though y'all are still boys. In the end, because Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni ended up going too, you decided that you wanted out. Fair enough. But since you arrived in Houston and since you've averaged 25 a game every season in your career in Houston, 30 over the last 3 years, 29 over the last 4 minimum, 28 over the last 5 minimum. Now you're playing with a dude who's better than you in Kevin Durant, who's a flat-out superstar in this game. Fresh off an Achilles tear, 18 months out of action, first 8 games playing this season, averaging 29 a game on 54% shooting. There is no excuse for the Brooklyn Nets not to make it to the NBA Finals. And the likelihood is that if we look at them and they don't make it, it'll be because Harden didn't show up, figuratively, or Kyrie didn't show up, possibly literally. And so as a result of that, I thought about the pressure that these two have on their shoulders because Kevin Durant is leading the pack. Not only is he a superstar, he is one of the most unselfish superstars we've ever witnessed on the basketball court. This dude was averaging 28 a game, shooting 17 shots a game. Kyrie was averaging 26 and shooting 20 a game. So think about that for a second here. And if somebody's going to sacrifice, who's going to sacrifice and make sure that Kevin Durant doesn't have to sacrifice any more than he already has? That's the question mark in all of this. Kevin Durant, as long as he goes out there and plays the way that he plays, we're not going to look at him. We're going to look at Harden or Kyrie Irving, possibly both, because somebody's going to have to sacrifice somewhere. Chris Bosh was a third wheel at sacrifice. Ray Allen was a third wheel at sacrifice. Klay Thompson was a third wheel who sacrificed. Who's going to be that guy that makes the sacrifice for the Brooklyn Nets here? That's why Kyrie Irving and James Harden are so pivotal in all of this. And that's what I thought about, Max. That's what first came to my mind when I first learned that this deal was done.
Obviously, those thoughts are legit. Only thing I would add in terms of who the pressure's on, I think there's a lot of focus on Kyrie because he seems to be melting right now, and James Harden because, okay, James, you want Dwight Howard, you want Russell Westbrook, you want Chris Paul, you want Russell Westbrook. Now, after a year, it doesn't work out. You want to go to Brooklyn. You're joining 2 other superstars. You better win. But in fact, Stephen A., think about who the best player on the team is. I think there's actually the most pressure on KD, strangely, because LeBron, wherever he goes, figures out a way to make it work. It's not just that he has supernatural passing ability. He knows how to lead a group of guys to the promised land. Whether or not they actually win the championship, he gets them there. Basically, every single